off video and audio and give the floor to you.
All right. And yeah, all right. We will go ahead and get started. Even though I know the Dries note is still ongoing, we can always hope that some of you catch this on video after the fact. So by way of introduction, I'm Ryan Zorama, the CEO of Centarro, the company behind Drupal Commerce. And I'm here to talk about our vision, which is commerce without compromise. And last year, when we were presenting at DrupalCon, we were actually talking about like taking Drupal Commerce to market. So it's a bit of a like a business session. Like what does it mean for us as the vendor of Drupal Commerce to take it to market in a way that people who choose and select e-commerce applications can understand it, just wrap their heads around what it is, because like Drupal Commerce as just a plugin set for a CMS isn't the first thing on most people's radar when they go searching for an e-commerce platform. So we talked about support, we talked about roadmap, we talked about building a cadre of capable partners that can help implement the software, and just said these are the reasons why people choose platforms. It's not just about the feature set, it's also about commercially, is it viable long term, and can I get the support that I need? And so this year, we're going to kind of shift gears just a little bit. First, though, I just wanted to talk about like how successful were we? We needed to get Drupal Commerce to market. Were people interested in buying what we had to sell them, which is an e-commerce platform? So 1 year ago, I went back and looked at the Drupal usage statistics for the project and saw that we were hovering in the 11,000s range, right? The middle 11,000. So we'll call it 11,500. And today we're up around 16,000, which means that in the midst of a pandemic, we've expanded 40% in 1 year. And in some cases, not just despite the pandemic, but even because of it. Because we all know that the pandemic accelerated digital transformation for many companies. And honestly, I was concerned. This time last year, I thought that we would lose at least one of our major customers. A long-term retainer customer has been very valuable both to our company and to the project as sponsors of a lot of our work. And they just had a lot of retail exposure. And instead, they saw their online sales multiply, and they doubled down on their investment with us and their investment in Drupal Commerce. And we saw that really across the board with all of our main customers expanding their investment in Drupal Commerce and new customers coming to the table who were greenlighting budgets that had been held for a while, specifically because they knew they needed to adapt. So that means that today, Commerce 2.x alone is serving around 16,000 Drupal 8 sites, and it's growing. We're really excited about that because we think that what we have is this sort of like battle-tested, field-tested, capable e-commerce framework that powers literally billions of dollars in gross transaction volume a year. And that still like amazes me even today. So I'm not going to belabor this slide because it's a lot of text, but the basic idea is when we go into pitches, we're saying we are bringing to you a complete e-commerce framework for your consideration. And it's not just us working on it. All of our technology partners are investing in our success and have realized that this platform is driving a significant amount of revenue through their products. So PayPal is happy to invest in the Drupal community because they see the expansion of our merchants. Authorize.net, Avalara, happy to invest in Drupal because they see Drupal as a place for them to find new merchants, and not just the number of merchants, but the quality of merchants. Every time I meet with my partners at Avalara, they're just underscoring the fact that the quality of merchant that comes to them through the Drupal community is significantly higher than their just cold lead off their website. And not only have we grown 40% in the last year, the pace of our development isn't slowing down. So even with turnover in the company, turnover in the community, people changing focus, we've seen a lot of posts lately on Drupal Planet about like falling in love with Drupal again, to Drupal or not to Drupal. Well, we're just here to say today, like our pace of development isn't slowing down, and we are invested in finding ways to accelerate it. So we had a lot of recent releases. You can go back and look at these release notes, but just to kind of highlight some changes. I mean, We've added order comments, AVS response codes to the payment terminal, customizable checkout messaging, improved BOGO offers. That's a buy one, get one with automatic offer activation and other things, improved payment administration, improved performance to run Commerce 2.x at scale. We focused heavily in Commerce 2.24 on improving the merchant experience, and that underlined link there leads to a blog post where Jonathan, our lead developer, explained what those improvements included, like expanded logging, simpler workflow management, more obvious user interfaces for merchants who are managing orders and interacting with customers through the Drupal interface. We also continue to expand various contrib modules like the Commerce API, which now fully supports payment, including decoupled or headless payment applications. We've just implemented this for a major university in the United States to have a decoupled checkout form for their alumni donations. Same with Commerce Shipping. We finally got that to a full release after years of development by a customer being willing to sponsor some key usability improvements on the checkout form, like automatically recalculating shipping charges as a customer inputs their address. So a lot of stuff is going on, and our customers are funding a tremendous amount of it. We're very grateful for that. Furthermore, thanks to our Drupal 9 strategy, where we focused on removing our dependencies on deprecated code as those deprecations happen in core, we were immediately ready for Drupal 9, which means that all of our new projects are starting on Drupal 9 today. That doesn't mean every contributed module is ready for this, but thanks to Drupal.org's embrace of GitLab, we have a way to work around still using Composer to build a site with kind of a fork, if you will, in the D.O GitLab instance that accommodates the Drupal 9 upgrade patch if it's just a YAML configuration change. So we're really excited about that. This is the way of the future. No longer are we having to recreate all of our plugins for each new major release of Drupal. True game changer, especially if you consider the pain that we all endured going first from UberCart to Drupal Commerce, and then from Drupal Commerce on Drupal 7 to Drupal Commerce on Drupal 8. So last year, as I said, we talked about what it'll take to get Drupal Commerce where we want it to be, recognized in the market, growing, accelerating its growth. Leading up to this DrupalCon, we've actually been doing a bit of navel gazing, a bit of wondering, well, even if we did get there, what is it we hope to accomplish by getting there? What does it mean to get to market if we don't know what we're trying to accomplish in the market? And we were really convicted that we just needed to articulate our vision, both for our own sake, but also so that we would have like a unique message and a real unified message to take to the market and say, hey, here's the future we're creating. And by adopting our software and investing in open source, this is a future you can contribute to and benefit from. That's how we landed at the phrase commerce without compromise. Through our contributions to Drupal, by maintaining Drupal Commerce, by gathering our friends and customers to help us build it, we're creating a future where anyone who wants to sell online can compete without compromising their ambitions, their software freedoms, or maybe more importantly, consumer privacy rights. That's more and more a cost of doing business on many SaaS platforms, is just giving all of your data and your customers' data to the platform to data mine, to do with as they will. And we've seen breaches at Shopify, breaches on many major SaaS platforms, Facebook's dump of 500 million people's private information. I mean, people are just exposed and they have no way to really take control of their own privacy and security. These are some of the promises of working with open source software that's well maintained, that's got a tremendous community around it. Like Dries said in the Dries note 30 minutes ago, Drupal has one of, if not the most mature, robust open source development communities in the world. And we're well served by our leadership, by our security team, and more. I want to focus first in this vision statement on that phrase, compete without compromising, because I think that competing without compromising is the promise of open source business software. The thing is, it's not just about like choosing a tool that can let you do whatever you want. That tool has to be at least as capable as the other options on the table, or have trade-offs so that it's good enough as a product on its own, and you're not asking people to overlook all the quote unquote bad parts in order to get the benefit of software freedom. Because the reality is most companies are not going to replace goodwill in their decision-making process with, does it actually solve my problems? Josh from Pantheon recently made this point as he was commentating on the little bit of a kerfluffle in the WordPress community, where Wix, a major SaaS platform, sent every WordPress influencer a very expensive set of headphones and a link to a video that basically was just dogging WordPress. And the reality is that Wix is engaged in guerrilla marketing. They're trying to cause a fuss. They're trying to generate outrage and get people talking about them because they're just doing marketing. And I don't agree with the marketing tactic. I think there are better ways to appeal to developers and make inroads in development communities. But the reality is, if open source software like WordPress or like Drupal and by extension Drupal Commerce want to compete, we have to be at least as capable at marketing ourselves, at presenting our vision, and at the features that matter for the merchant. So we can't forever have a Drupal Commerce that doesn't have a robust dashboard, a sales dashboard, right? It seems simple, easy enough to tell someone, well, you have all the data, you have a REST API, can't you build it? Well, surely they could build it, or they could just go pay Shopify $40 a month and have one already. And at that point, insight into your sales performance is such a critical part of doing business in general, much less business online, that you're going to choose that solution over a solution that promises you full data portability or data ownership, full roadmap ownership, or whatever. So we know that we need to be at least as capable as our competitors at nailing the fundamentals, and we need to pay increased attention to the usability of our platform, just like Drupal does at large, like Dries was talking about today with respect to the site builder experience. So once you can compete without compromise, or once you can compete at least, you can then start talking about where other people are making people compromise that we aren't forcing them to compromise. In other words, if I'm going into a sales pitch and I can say, look, I check all these boxes, I'm at least as a baseline as capable as BigCommerce that you're currently considering versus Drupal Commerce. But did you know, and then I can get into my pitch, that we believe in a future where you aren't forced to compromise on your ambitions. You don't have to curtail your ambitions to conform to the feature set that a SaaS platform gives you. Or you don't have to try to fit yourself inside of somebody else's box. And MatSmart for us is the classic case of this. We've presented their case study in the past. You can find those videos online at previous DrupalCons. I know that we have the slides out there as well. I'll find the link and post it. But MatSmart literally adopted Drupal Commerce from day one as a startup in Sweden, trying to solve the problem of food waste through a better online grocery shopping experience. So they took Drupal Commerce and they built matsmart.se. And it was great. It was a full stack Drupal Commerce on Drupal 7 implementation of commerce that they slowly decoupled over time. About the time they engaged us to help them improve their performance, they had adopted Findify for their product catalog, searching and navigation. And then we started to further decouple what they were doing. We removed views from the render pipeline, and removed the Drupal Forms API from the render pipeline to clear out gigabytes and gigabytes of cache overhead. And we built them a very fast site that could scale to support thousands of concurrent shoppers. Right? I think their peak orders, were well above 10,000 an hour. Their peak shoppers well above 4,000 an hour. And we're talking about big numbers and increasing since then. This was 4 years ago, and they've now fully decoupled. So really exciting to see that growth. And their ambitions weren't limited by what their platform would offer them. They weren't charged more as their traffic scaled by their platform. They didn't have to give anybody, a vendor, a chunk of their revenue just to do business on their platform. And once they were ready to expand to new territories, they could literally copy the code base and paste it into a new hosting instance to launch into a new country if they wanted to do so. They now have a fully decoupled backend that supports multiple countries with React on the front end Like it's crazy the way that they've been growing and continue to grow, all because their ambitions weren't limited by what their platform had to offer. So we think this is really important, and it ties into that ethos of Drupal in general. Like, we are ambitious. We're trying to solve ambitious problems. We're trying to scale and impact the world and let that sort of numeric and impact around the world fuel our passion for the work that we do. And so that's why we make that just our first point. You don't have to compromise your ambitions in selecting an e-commerce platform. Additionally, though, you don't have to sacrifice your software freedoms. Many of us are familiar with the fundamental freedoms that the Free Software Foundation promotes for software, right? It's the right to look at your code, to expand upon your code, and to redistribute your code. So if you choose an e-commerce platform, you shouldn't just be tied to a vendor roadmap. Or if you want to add a new feature into your platform, you shouldn't have to pay that vendor an exorbitant fee for them to develop it behind closed doors and maybe make it part of their platform. We literally had customers who had proprietary SaaS platforms and were being quoted, I kid you not, over $500,000 to add Stripe payment API support. And just like it's mind-boggling. If you've ever worked with Stripe, you know it's one of the easiest payment APIs in the world to work with. They were prepared to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to add this to their platform because they had no ability to add features to their platform themselves. It was unbelievable. They eventually left that platform. And much to my delight, they're expanding their usage of Centarro through our headless commerce offering as we speak. But one great case study came about recently through a partnership of ours with Signified, a fraud prevention platform, where we have a mutual customer, EC Barton and Company, that runs Home Outlet. It's a chain of home construction retail stores throughout the southeastern United States. They have over 100 stores. They do a tremendous amount of business, and all of their online sales go through Commerce 2.x. They were an early adopter. They were big contributors to a wide variety of core and contributed features, modules, APIs. And before the pandemic even hit, they invested heavily in store pickup features so that you could go to their website, you could use a store locator, you could find the store within a radius from your current location. Having picked a store, you could see the inventory available in that store and build a cart that would prepare a store pickup order for you immediately, and within a certain radius, give you the option to have them ship it to your house. We're talking about a lot of material, so it's not like they can just pack up a UPS box and ship it out. They would send a truck out with pallets full of material if you wanted them to do so. And what happened is they did this all throughout 2019. And when the pandemic shut down all of their retail stores, they were ready. They more than doubled their online sales by being ready to address the challenges of the future. Many of their competitors were stuck on platforms that couldn't do that. They couldn't just pivot immediately and make store pickup suddenly available. But because they had the freedom to look into the future and begin to develop the future they wanted, even before the market conditions changed that made that seem like a genius idea, they were ready for it. And I don't know if anybody else shares the experience I had. Many of the stores around me, have websites built on Square or built on Squarespace or built on Shopify. And when the pandemic hit, they had to rush to prepare these store pickup features or other just baseline e-commerce features that we already offered, or that anybody using Drupal Commerce were free to create, because it just hadn't been a key priority on their roadmap. The pandemic made it so, but they were all playing catch up while Home Outlet was just ready. So that's just one of many software freedoms that we truly believe in. And frankly, we just love the fact that all of our major customers are concerned with and careful to ensure that the code that they pay us to write goes back into the community. One, it's just a baseline part of our contracts that improvements to open source software will be committed back to the open source software projects themselves. But also, like these companies want it. They pick to work with us because they know that's what they're going to get when they work with us, and they know that they benefit from the efforts of everybody else who are part of our free software community. So really excited about this. We don't want anybody to have to compromise on software freedoms to adopt an e-commerce platform in the future. And finally, this is increasingly important. It's just that like nobody should be forced to compromise on privacy, theirs as a merchant or the consumer privacy rights of their customers. And this is a real problem. You might remember 2 years ago, MailChimp and Shopify got in a big spat because MailChimp refused to just hand over all of their merchants' data to Shopify. So Shopify was delisting them from the Shopify App Store. There is, as far as I know today, unless the situation's been resolved, no official MailChimp app in the Shopify App Store, although there may be third-party solutions for connecting these things together. Shopify is data hungry. That's their prerogative as a platform, but that does mean that you're sacrificing your privacy rights. We work with multiple healthcare technology companies who cannot use Shopify and other SaaS platforms because they must protect the PII of their customers, the personally identifiable information. Not only is it just good, safe business practice, it's a legal requirement with laws both in Europe and the United States and elsewhere around the world that mean these platforms are just baseline not capable of meeting what these companies need. So we don't want our healthcare customers or partners to be forced to accept the erosion of consumer privacy rights as a cost of doing business online. And we don't think anybody else should be forced to accept that either. Again, this is just a differentiator. And if you're making the pitch for Drupal Commerce against platforms, I'm not saying that Drupal has a sterling, unimpeachable security record. However, for sites that are following the security releases, are following best practices, they're much more secure and have a much better track record than most other solutions on the market. And you simply have the ability, it's in your control to harden your servers, to set up the right policies internally in these organizations, to set up the right procedures and personnel decisions. We just don't think people should be outsourcing privacy to a SaaS or proprietary platform, because those platforms 9 times out of 10 are not concerned about privacy in the same way that a merchant, especially in a sensitive industry, will be or legally must be. All right, so that's those are our 3 values, if you will, that we think competing and doing commerce without compromising upholds. But again, you must be able to compete, right? That means that it's our mission as Centarro and the mission we're inviting the Drupal community into to make our platform more capable for more merchants over time, right? We want more people to be able to use software that protects their ambitions, their software freedoms, and their privacy. And so we get to roadmap, right? It's not a dirty word, but it can be hard to stay on top of. And it needs more than just a single issue on Drupal.org and the occasional blog post or tweet from us to make sure that we're aligned. So we're continuing to find ways to make the roadmap more transparent and communicate more about what we're working on to the world at large. So just to review what we're up to right now, we have Commerce Recurring nearing a full release. Huge thanks to ZivTech, another Drupal agency that's heavily invested in open source, for sponsoring a tremendous amount of work in that project over the last 9 months. I mean, it has become immensely more capable than it ever was before. We're launching recurring projects now today that just work out of the box and provide tremendous flexibility to the merchants. Commerce Shipping, as I mentioned, we just had the full 2.0 release. And we continue to make architectural improvements. We have community members focused on carrier and tracking code management for shipments. We're continuing to improve the user experience, especially around shipment management on the back end. Internally at Centarro, we're also relaunching the Belgrade theme. You may have seen our demo before. We're also preparing additional themes to choose from and focusing on out-of-the-box features like a wizard to help you better configure your store right out of the box. Finally, existing customer relationships or financing improvements in wish lists, invoices, invoice payments, B2B features like shared order histories, shared address books, shared payment methods even. So all of that work is happening and will be in Contrib as well. And finally, we continue to expand the capabilities of Commerce API because we still firmly believe in a decoupled future for Drupal Commerce. As I mentioned, we've just launched a headless giving experience for a major university in the United States that supports recurring and one-time payments via both Commerce CyberSource and Commerce PayPal. So CyberSource credit card payment or PayPal payment from this React application on the front end. That required improvements to Commerce API to support token management and all that stuff. So all this stuff is ongoing, and we're really pursuing a future where we fully support even headless checkout, right? The ability to take your checkout configuration even and have that mapped to an application on the front end that builds and submits a checkout form with the appropriate order updates as well. I'm going to pause for 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm working at home downstairs, not in my office, because we just had a child 2 weeks ago, and my dog was being exceptionally annoying, and I didn't know if it was coming through on the audio or not. So, finally, last point is just that Commerce Kickstart, you may remember, was a full distribution on Drupal 7 and Drupal 7 that basically provided a demo experience out of the box, and it's making a comeback. So this was kind of a pre-canned version of Drupal with a theme, modules, configuration, a whole backend dashboard that basically was used to demonstrate the capabilities of Commerce 1.x, and for a certain narrow set of customers, gave them a starting point. They just would delete the demo content and then build their own content into it. And that was great for, again, that sort of narrowly defined set of merchants who just needed what it had to offer out of the box. But it was a bit more challenging to use as a launching point for a more ambitious project, you might say. People basically just ended up having to use it to see how things were built, but then go rebuild those components from scratch elsewhere to avoid some of the interconnected features of the distribution. So we already have the Belgrade Demo. You already can launch it with a click of a button. You can see it by going to our website, Centarro.io, and clicking the demo button in the top right corner. But we're actually going to bring this whole experience back to Drupal.org as a full-on distribution of Drupal. Because when we think about merchant adoption, in the past, we've always said, well, commerce will always represent roughly 5% of Drupal sites. And we haven't really given much thought to how can we increase just the sheer number of merchants, because frankly, as a business, we rise and fall based on the quality of merchant. But the number does matter. We can't forever say the number doesn't matter when WooCommerce is reaching 500,000 merchants or more, or when Shopify is just blowing up like crazy. There is a market for just a simple out-of-the-box experience that just does what it says it will do. And so for starters, we're just looking at Uber cart users. There's still like 15,000 Uber cart users on Drupal 6 and Drupal 7. They haven't made the shift yet to Drupal 8 for one reason or another. And we just want this distribution to be that thing that they can move right to. That would be an awesome baseline. The average casual Uber cart user being able to just slide right into Commerce Kickstart. But even more so, we'd like to see that as an off-ramp for Shopify or big commerce customers as well. People who have begun to realize the importance of their software freedoms or protecting privacy rights. So look for that to happen this year, and look for much more to happen as well. We'll be online answering Q&A here and at the booth. And of course, you can always find us in Drupal Slack in the Commerce channel. Join 2,000 of your future closest friends as we discuss and support the software together. Thank you very much. And I am presently just checking the back scroll in the chat.
Yeah, if you want to do a short Q&A, we do have a couple extra minutes right now.
Okay. Yeah, I see Alex's comment, and it's so true. I mean, for the amount of money they were prepared to drop on that Stripe integration, I told my lead on the project, like, can we just convince them to just let us build them a complete order management system? Because I promise for that amount of money, we could get 3 people, 4 people, and just knock it out. Monthly newsletter. I would love that. Man, it seems so simple. And then every time I sit down and stare at the code at the text editor, writer's block sets in. But let's do it. I can't promise we'll start in April, but we'll start in May. Let's see, I see Alex also advocating for continued admin UX improvements over API. Oh, no, I see. Actually adding admin features to Commerce API so you can build a decoupled backend. Agreed. I know that 1x Internet was focused on that a little bit. I don't know exactly where their work landed. So that would be worth looking into again. Sean, I don't know if Acromedia has been doing any sort of decoupling in the back end. Cool. Well, if you are, Alex, maybe that's something just for us to chat about, like finding some way to just gather the minds together from various agencies that I know are interested in that. Okay. Yeah. Let's reach out to 1x then, and maybe even though Acro and my team are also just focused on decoupled front end, maybe there'd be people that we could have contributing to the effort. Decoupled Commerce Con 2020. Man, I would love that. You go completely unplugged too. Just we all need to go to like the Caribbean and it's Mai Tais on the beach and unplugged Drupal Commerce. We will be presenting our decoupled work at Decoupled, yes, Lake Cumberland again, at Decoupled Dev Days. I believe this is coming up in June. I need to look at the calendar again. It's coming up fast, but I'll be presenting there on our latest decoupled work. Mike O'Connor has been helping us do some of this, prototyping, dropping commerce components via JavaScript into both WordPress and Expression Engine sites, where it's just a single, Centarro Commerce supported backend API behind it. That's been kind of fun to tease out. Yeah, I still personally I just don't know how to decide when is it better to go full stack versus headless. If somebody could just answer that question for me, I'd love it. Because I feel like sometimes we make the decision and it ends up being a frustrating decision, and sometimes we do it and it was just the most obvious thing in hindsight, and then it expands throughout the organization that we're helping adopt it. So I think we need to do a lot more thinking on that. I'm gonna look at the Q&A tab real fast. Is there a commerce site on Drupal 9? Ours are just in development. I don't know about live sites on Drupal 9. I'm sure there are. If anybody's in the chat that has one, feel free to throw it in there. You do have some, I actually, I did one for just a nonprofit citizen journalism project. I just set up Commerce 2 with the Olivero blog theme, and it was just like, hey, here's your recurring billing platform to take donations for your journalism. Sean, if you have some, feel free to share links. But I'd say that the main issue you have to work around is if a contributor module you need hasn't yet made the changes to their info.yaml file to say, yes, I support Drupal 9, then the Drupal packagist will not serve it up as an option for you when you're trying to add it as a dependency via Composer. So what you have to do is first, find or create a fork or a clone of the repo in GitLab with that patch applied, and then edit your composer.json file to add that repositories array to substitute the repository for that project for the clone repository in GitLab. Once you've done that, you can just use Composer like normal until, of course, those patches get incorporated into the project. And then you can just remove the repositories line and boom, you're ready to go. So, and that's that. Thanks for everybody that joined in. And, if the vision excites you, we're going to keep riffing on that on the blog, hopefully here shortly. And maybe that's what will make the subject of the April newsletter, Sean. But we think that we want it to be a unifying vision, and we want it to be something that sets Drupal apart, right? We don't want to just be an also-ran e-commerce platform. And it's hard to say 50,000 sites is an also-ran, but it's easy for us to get lost in the mix of the big e-commerce players. And nobody out there is advancing the message of protecting the merchant's ambitions, freedoms, and privacy rights. Nobody's doing that. The biggest open source e-commerce platform was bought by Adobe, right? And Adobe's just not known for those things being central to their mission or vision. So a lot more thinking for us to do there. Commerce without compromise sounds kind of cool. We'll see how far it goes.